All right, welcome to another edition of Mr. Vona's Homework Help. Today we are looking at similar figures. So this is again still in a proportion unit, but now we're kind of throwing a little geometry in there. All right, so number one here. If we notice, there are no labels on the triangle. This was the same thing we saw in the classwork. So what you're going to want to do to kind of help keep yourself organized is put some labels in there. So for example, I'm going to make this triangle A, and I'm going to make this triangle B. So I'm going to make my key just like I did in the word problems. So here's my key. Triangle A over triangle B. And then I kind of have to see what matches up, what corresponds to one another in these triangles. So for example, 15's on the bottom, 12's on the bottom here, so these two are in corresponding positions, so they're going to make up one of my fractions. 9 and x are also corresponding, so they're going to make my other fractions. So when I'm setting this up, 15 is from A, so the 15 goes on top. 12 is from B, so the 12 goes on the bottom. And that's going to equal 9 over x. At this point, we're just back to our regular cross multiplication. All right, 15x, 9 times 12. So we're going to end up with 15x equals 108. We're going to divide both sides by 15. Divide both sides by 15. 108 divided by 15 is 7.2. So we've got x equals 7.2. All right. So I'm actually going to go a little out of order here because I'm going to save number 2 for last because number 2 tends to be the most challenging. So we're just going to go down the page here and do number 3 next. Okay. So again, different shapes, but the same exact idea. You're going to want to pick a label. Maybe this time I'll use S and T. Just mix it up a little bit. Okay. So again, I'm going to make my key, I'm going to put the S on top, I'm going to put the T on the bottom, and then it's just a matter of matching up the sides. The 5 and the 3 are in corresponding positions, the 2.5 and the X are in corresponding positions. So we're going to put the 5 over the 3, because the 5 is from S, the 3 is from T, so we've got 5 over 3 equals, and then I'm going to put 2.5 over x. Again, the 2.5 is from the s, the x is from the t, and then it's just a matter of going through and doing our cross multiplication here. So I've got 5 times x, which is 5x. I've got 3 times 2.5, which is 7.5. I divide both sides by 5, divide both sides by 5. X is going to equal 1.5. Okay. All right, so we've already got 2 done. Let's slide over here to number 4. Again, I'm going to save number 2 for last because I do feel like that's probably the most challenging. Okay, so we've got some parallelograms here, mixing it up a little bit. What letters do we want to use? Let's go with Q and Z, because why not, right? So again, we set up our key. We're going to put Q over Z. We've got to find some sides that match up here. Now you might be saying to yourself, the 8 matches up with the top here, but there's no number on the top. What you have to remember is that if this down here is 4, this up here is also 4. If this is X, this is also x. Same thing up here. If this is 8, this is also 8. If this is 6, this is also 6. So now it's much easier to kind of find things that match up. So we could say, all right, I'm going to match the 8 up with the 4, and then I'm going to match the 6 up with the x. So again, they weren't a direct match, but if you just remember with a parallelogram, opposite sides are going to be the same, and we can kind of make this work just like the other ones pretty quickly. That's also true for rectangles and squares and other stuff like that. Okay, so let's see. If we put in Q on top, that's 8 over 4. So we've got 8 over 4. And then that's going to be the 6, because again, the 6 is from the Q. 6 over x. Okay, so there's our proportion. We're going to cross multiply. 8 times x is 8x. 6 times 4 is 24. 8x equals 24. Divide both sides by 8. Divide both sides by 8. X equals 3. All right, now let's go up to number 2, saving the best for last. All right, so number 2 can be tricky because you've got sort of this shape within a shape. So what I recommend when you're doing these is actually to break it down and make it 2 separate shapes. So I'm going to draw myself a big triangle, and then I'm going to draw myself a little triangle. I'm trying to make this problem similar to the ones that we just did. All right, get it? Similar figures. I'm here all day. All right, so on the big triangle, if we look at the picture, it's telling us the entire bottom is x. So we're going to put our x there. Now, this is the part that's tricky. All right, if we look at this side of our bigger triangle, it's not just 4, it's not just 3, it's those 2 pieces put together. So all together, 4 plus 3 is 7. All right? And then on the smaller triangle, that one's a little easier because it's just the 4 and the 3. So we can just put the 4 here and the 3 here. And this is the part that kind of goofs kids up because when they're setting up their proportion, they're using a number, specifically the 7 here, that's not actually labeled on the picture. So a lot of kids want to try to use the 4, the 3, the 4, and the x, but what you have to recognize is that when we're looking at the big triangle, this vertical side here is actually 7, and that's what we're going to have to use in our proportion. So that's what makes this one a little more challenging than some of the other ones that we've done. Okay, once we have that though, it's the same as all the other ones. So let's see, I'll just use J and S here. All right, so triangle J, triangle S. I'm going to put the J on top. I'm going to put the S on the bottom. And then let's see what we've got here. The 7 matches up with the 3. The X matches up with the 4. So that's going to be 7 over 3 equals X over 4. Okay. Cross multiply, cross multiply. 7 times 4 is 28. 3 times x is 3x. Divide both sides by 3. Divide both sides by 3. X is going to equal 9.3 repeating. Or you could just write that as x equals 28 over 3. Both of those would be acceptable ways to write that answer. Okay? Okay, so flipping over to the back, the last 3 problems are just kind of more review and practice solving proportions. There's no word problems here, there's no similar figures, it's just kind of going through and doing the math. So hopefully at this point you're pretty comfortable, but I'll go through them just the same in case you want to check your answers. Okay, so on this first one here, we're going to cross multiply. 4 times x is going to give us our 4x. 3 times 15 is going to give us 45. All right, divide by 4, divide by 4. 45 divided by 4 is going to be 11.25. So x equals 11.25. So hopefully you got the same answer on that one. All right, on number 6 here, again, these are the harder ones because these are the ones where you have to remember to distribute when you're solving these. So I've got this right here, I've got this right here, and when I'm doing it, it's not 6 times x, it's not 6 times negative 1, it's 6 times the whole thing, so I need to put the parentheses in there. 6 parentheses x minus 1, close the parentheses, equals 12 parentheses x plus 2, and then close the parentheses. Once we're here, we're going to go through our steps. We're going to start by distributing. So on both sides, we're going to end up with 6x minus 6 equals 12x plus 24. Okay? We have variables on both sides of our equation, so we want to get those kind of on the same side. Usually we move the smaller variable. It helps us avoid some negative signs, so minus 6x, minus 6x. All right, now this is a common mistake here. When we go down and cancel these out, what's left over is not just a positive 6, it's a negative 6, so that negative sign has to come down. Far too often I see kids just write 6 there, and the negative sign just sort of disappears on them. But this is a minus 6, so that minus sign comes down, and now we're left with a negative 6 equals 6x plus 24. All right. Subtract 24 from both sides, subtract 24. A negative 6 minus 24. Remember, if you're not good with the negatives, just break out your calculator. This is going to give us a negative 30 equals 6x. Divide both sides by 6. Negative 5 equals x. All right, so let's move on to the last one. So number 7, get this done, and then you're all set. All right, so again, this is another one where we've got binomials on the top and the bottom. So when we do our cross multiplication, you're just going to have to be careful to remember those parentheses and then kind of do the distributive property there. So, all right, we've got 4 parentheses x minus 2 equals 8 parentheses x plus 2. Distribute on both sides. We get 4x minus 8 equals 8x plus 16. Variables on both sides. Again, we're going to generally move the smaller variable. So that minus 4x, these are going to cancel out. Same thing as what we saw in number 6 here. When that 8 comes down, the negative sign or the minus sign has to come down with it, and we're left over with a negative 8 equals 4x plus 16. All right, the opposite of plus 16 is minus 16, minus 16. Again, there's lots of negatives here, so if these give you problems, just use your calculator. Negative 8 minus 16 is going to give us minus 24 equals 4x. Divide by 4, divide by 4. X is going to equal negative 6. All right, so there you go. Hope this was a help. Have a good day.